Good, and welcome to our final session of Partner Week. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. We've had some amazing sessions featuring channel experts and partner marketers from some of the world's leading tech firms, talking all about co-selling, co-marketing, co-innovation opportunities, and what partners need to do and what partner marketers need to do to seize the opportunity, this tremendous opportunity that we're seeing for partner marketing in 2025. Been some lovely sessions. So as I said, get to hear from Jay. He spoke fantastically about how to unlock growth in the evolving channel ecosystem. And today we are going to talk about how to enhance partner marketing programs using AI. So I'm Ali Hussain. I'm the SVP of Strategy and AI at the Marketing Practice. I'm joined today by Graham. Good afternoon, Graham.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on, Ali.
Absolute pleasure. So Graham's the MD of Software and Services for Cisco UK and the founder of WispNet, which is a consultancy specializing in helping organizations scale through the power of automation and AI. And as it happens, Graham and I actually met whilst out walking the dog a little while ago. And we don't share a dog, walking our dogs a little while ago. And we got chatting and soon found that we were both very interested, very excited about the potential of AI to create value for all sorts of different organizations. So Graham particularly focuses on intelligent sales operations and loves to understand how to design, sell, and deliver innovative solutions. So whether that's strategic buying programs, consulting, professional managed services, Graham's mission, as I've discovered over a number of conversations with him walking around the field, is to help businesses achieve measurable outcomes and maximize their tech investments. Okay, so it's a very simple structure for today's session. Two parts. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about how to think about AI. And the reason is that there's so much noise around AI at the moment that if we just dive straight into use cases and examples, it's very hard to process in what's good about them, how they work, why those are the sorts of examples worth pursuing. And hopefully by starting the session with a little bit of context around how to think about AI, will give you the framework where you can approach the topic in a sensible way and ask sensible questions that are really relevant to you and your business. So we won't be able to cover the entire gamut of what AI will be able to do for you today, but hopefully we'll give you the foundation layer that enables you to go off and chat to people, ask the right questions, and find how AI can help your business become more valuable. So how to think about AI. So I think the first thing, and I know this is something we've spoken about quite a lot, Graham, is the emotional aspect of how people feel about Gen AI. Because this is a new technology, people's reactions really impact how they adopt it, whether they're ready to, whether they're excited about it, whether they're terrified. And to slightly caricature this, the two the two perspectives that I tend to hear from people that I speak to and our clients are at one end, the kind of the fear, I don't understand it, it might take my job. And then at the other end, this is amazing. It's going to save the world and could make me famous as well in the organization. So there is an awful lot of room between those two, obviously, and actually people tend to flit a little bit, along the spectrum. And this is also obviously backed up by a slight fear that everyone else is doing stuff faster than you are, or they're way ahead of where you are. But that's certainly what I'm hearing. Graham, is that the kind of thing that you're hearing from the partners?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I start with the don't understand my job, that there's quite a lot of jobs out there where there is that fear at the moment. So particularly when I talk to people like help desk analysts, call center agents, they're very fearful. Even in technology companies, engineering, which has been a classic skill like network engineering, there's a concern that their job is going to be automated. At the same time, there's people like you and I, and there's a big group of those building now that are really excited about the potential, and then there's people in the middle of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things to come back to around this actually is a lovely quote from a chap called Dan Shipper, who writes brilliantly on AI, by the way, well worth following, subscribing to his newsletter if you're interested in it. And he says, people who use AI well are always curious and constantly experimenting. They find it fun and exciting to learn AI tools, even when these tools fail. So I think there is something here about helping people shift their mindset. So if you are uncertain, lots of people listening to this will be a little uncertain around AI. Um, the best advice I can give you is to try it out. There's a chap called Ethan Mollick. He's written a book called Co-Intelligence about Gen AI and how it might get adopted. And he has this rule that after, if you can use a Gen AI tools for about 10 hours, um, just for all sorts of different things, you tend to find that you get a good handle on what you might be able to do with them. And that's a really kind of a good tipping point from slight trepidation into embracing what it might be able to do for you. There's also another tension that's definitely worth acknowledging here. So a lot of businesses at the moment, tech firms, are telling the world how amazing Gen AI is, whilst also being a little bit more reticent about it themselves. And that again is a tension. If you're operating in a large tech firm, it might be that the ambition for where your customers are at feels slightly out of kilter with where you're at internally. And I think again that's worth acknowledging. And I have seen a definite shift from that. I think the various legal teams at all these firms have kind of now done their due diligence and feel a little bit more confident about how to plot the way forward. But I'm sure there are certainly some firms out there where this is still a tension worth recognizing. Okay, so there are lots of wow moments with Gen AI, and it's hard to ignore the videos of guinea pigs doing Bon Jovi covers or the remakes of films in the style of Federico Fellini or whatever it might be. All these moments that make you go wow, but actually what's really important for most of our clients at the moment is this shift from these wow moments to actually how does it create value for me. You see all sorts of things online that make you go wow, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be particularly useful. So how do you use technology that can create a video of a guinea pig playing Bon Jovi cover into how can you use that same technology to create value for your business? And there are three things to bear in mind. I think first of all, think very specifically about how it can create specific value for you. So along with all those videos of guinea pigs playing guitar, there are also lots of tools being released on the market at the moment. And it's easy to get swept up in looking at them and thinking, gosh, isn't that remarkable? And I love to use it. But actually, the trick here is to keep focusing back on what will be valuable for you. And we'll talk a little bit in a moment about some questions you can ask to get to the kind of answers that can lead you in the right way to find that answer. Secondly, part of your toolkit. So there is a bit of a myth, and it's relatively persistent. It was certainly very, very present at the beginning of the Gen AI explosion, that there's a big red button that says Gen AI, and you press it, and it solves absolutely every problem, and you won't need anything else to do anything because that will reinvent the entire world overnight. Now, I am obviously hugely bullish on the capabilities of Gen AI to change an awful lot of things. However, it would be very naive to think that Gen AI is something that can be used completely aside from all your existing tech, people, processes, and all the things you have in your organizations that aren't going to disappear overnight. So understanding how you can fit Gen AI into your existing toolkit, as well as what else it can add and how it might change it, is a really, really important part of understanding what it's going to do for you. And then finally, this idea of history rhymes. So it might not repeat, but it does often rhyme, as Mark Twain once said. So I think as marketers, we are always prone to getting excited and distracted by shiny new things and thinking because they're shiny and new, the world is completely different. However, I think the smartest marketers and the people who are going to gain the most value most quickly from new technology like Gen AI are the ones who understand what are the patterns that we might see here and that we've seen in the past. So how can you employ a little bit of pattern recognition to go, okay, well this is more likely to work because of the patterns that we've seen in the past. So Graham, I don't know, I know you've had a very successful career in tech for a number of years now. Are there any kind of previous waves of technology you think are worth looking at when you think about
Yeah,
how to approach
I
Gen
mean,
AI?
I started my tech career in the mid 90s at the explosion of the internet. So I've seen this come in waves. Some of them some of them faster than others, and I'd say it's getting quicker than others. But a couple have stood out for me. So it's quite a niche one, but around the early 2000s, there started to be a shift from traditional telephony. I originally trained on something called a Marconi MX1. It was a telephony system. It was how phone systems were connected together. Within 5 years, Marconi, well, was pretty much no more by the late 2000s, and IP telephony became 80% kind of adopted by the end of the 2010s. And I remember a lot of people I worked with at the time sort of had this view that no, telephony's been here since Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1897, and it isn't going away. And unfortunately, for those people, it got disrupted. There was a little niche for them, but over time it got disrupted. And there's a really good Harvard piece I'd recommend you go read, which is called The Pace of Adoption is Speeding Up. So that telephone example, the original telephone, it took 25 years to get 10% adopted. It took another 39 years for it to get sort of 40% population adoption. And it was another 15 before it was 80%. So that's 80 years basically from its invention to adoption. Smartphones, that same end-to-end adoption cycle was 10 years. YouTube was 3.5 years, and Gen IA, we were already at about 48% adoption in an 18-month period. So you can see that those windows are getting smaller and smaller. So now's the time, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And that infrastructure of distribution that is absolutely obviously crucial to enable adoption is now in place, and readily accepted. There's some funny things around this. So even just this morning, you might think of the wave of cloud adoption as something that has happened. Cloud almost feels like it's happened already. But actually, Benedict Evans has just released his 2025 presentation. Um, and I think around 30% of enterprise workloads are currently cloud-based, which feels to me obviously like a remarkably low percentage. So I think, yeah, to your point, the pace of adoption is something that sometimes happens unevenly, but it feels like this time is the quickest it will have been for a long time. I think that there's another similar stat around, valuations are a funny old thing to base any sort of thinking on. But OpenAI's $150 billion valuation is something that happened in a couple of years, where Microsoft took about 15 years, I think, to reach a comparable figure, on a kind of an adjusted dollar basis.
Yeah, and if I may, the cloud one's another interesting one. So I remember at the time talking to CIOs, etc., and it almost became we need to be in the cloud. They weren't quite sure, but there was just it was such a good brand, and it was so well recognized that there was just a push to do it. And in the last year, I've seen the same. Almost every tech company I work with, whether it's Fortune 500 or a mid-sized company, they'll say we've got to be in AI. So it's almost become
Mm.
part of their fabric. So recognizing that trend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the things as we go through this as well is that you'll see that there is this incredibly rapid adoption, and then that slight, inevitable slowdown of, okay, well, we've adopted it. How do we continue? How do we actually now really see and realize value from the technology? And I think what's clear is that there is a level of expertise and guidance that businesses need to make that jump from, hey, we've got the tool, this is going to be so exciting, to, okay, now we're really seeing value from it. And I think as we talk through some of the ways of, the how to approach the technology, and then some of the use cases we'll be sharing, you'll see that there is necessary expertise that helps you bridge that gap from, hey, I've got the tool, to, wow, this is really creating value for my business. So I do just want to dive into that first part around how to work out what specific value for you might be. Where might you look? And people talk a lot about using kind of jobs to be done thinking when you come to identify potential use cases for Gen AI in your organization. There are 5 questions that I would recommend every business asks. You'll see 4 of them on this slide, and so we've run a lot of workshops for clients over the past year, asking them these 4 questions plus one I'll share in a moment. So first of all is, what are the things that take too long in your business? What are the things that you do day to day and that your team does, that the rest of your business does, that just feels like they take too long? That question might present opportunities for Gen AI usage. Secondly, things you have to do where you don't add a lot of value. Things you would love to do if you had the time. And then fourthly, things that you would love to scale. And potentially Gen AI might be able to help with a lot of the answers to these questions. And so that's a great way of discovering use cases. And then obviously it helps to prioritize them. As you'll see on the right, this arrow is basically saying, okay, which of these, if we solve for them, will give us the most value as a firm. Now, there is a really important question I haven't included on this slide. And the reason is that it is much more discussed and open-ended and requires a lot of imagination. It's not straightforward to answer. But actually, the fifth question really is, what would your customers love you to do? What would their ideal experience be? And that, I think, is the most transformative question of all. And when people talk about how Gen AI is going to reshape the world, I think it's in answer to that question that we will find out how it does. Um, so I don't know, Graham, are there any other questions that you'd encourage people to ask, or do you think that kind of covers it?
No, I think it covers the question really, really well. I sort of summarize it as this, when I speak to people, I say adoption without purpose can lead to that tool blindness that you referenced at the start. And there's a really good Forbes article on this called How CEOs Can Overcome Adoption Challenges, and it basically uses a similar framework that you've got here. So I think it's about having that purpose, defining that purpose, and then finding the right solution for you rather than seeing a tool or a solution and then try and fit it into your business. So these are the right questions to ask.
Yeah, fantastic. And partner marketers have been, all marketers, but partner marketers are absolutely part of the cohort that have been bearing the burden of a huge weight of martech marketing over the past 15, 20 years, much of which is hugely beneficial, but just the sheer, like you called it, tool blindness, like the amount of tech that they have been had thrown at them and they've thrown at problems, it's very easy to lose sight of answering kind of fundamental questions like this. So when we think about Gen AI specifically as a technology, so we've talked about kind of how technologies move from wow to how. Gen AI specifically has some characteristics that require some quite specific approaches. I'm going to go through those three now. So first of all, this idea of augmentation over automation. Now, everybody has this mental models. Oh, it's a computer. Therefore, it can do things repeatedly and fast and reliably, and so we will automate it. Now, there are some use cases, and more every day, where Gen AI can provide a level of automation which is really, really exciting, and especially for partner marketers and for resource staff partners, this is going to be a really exciting area. However, some of the really exciting use cases that Gen AI can take on are best taken on in a way that augments what your people and your current systems are capable of doing. So those really exciting kind of frontier use cases, don't limit yourself to, oh, well, if I can't automate it, it's not worth doing. Like, this is a technology that can work hand in hand, as this co-intelligence, as Ethan Mollick calls it, co-intelligence hand in hand with the people that you already have, and to augment what they're capable of. So don't just look at automation, think about what you can do in terms of augmentation as well, and that will help you stay a little bit ahead of the curve. Secondly, this idea of bespoke over general. So again, classic kind of tech mental model is this idea of the kind of the platform that can do everything. Now, if you take a tool like ChatGPT, it seems to be a general tool, but there are some quite fundamental reasons why making a bespoke tool is going to serve you better, and that is because the quality of the models themselves are already, is already very strong. It can already do a lot of things, and actually that's often not the constraint on the quality of the output. People are worried about how much better these models are going to get. It's an interesting question, but actually in some ways, and for a lot of use cases, it's kind of academic, because the models are already incredibly good and are great for lots and lots of things. And actually what's holding back the quality of the output that you can get from tools based on those models is, first of all, the quality of the input data that you are giving to the models. So yes, ChatGPT might be trained on the entire history of the internet, essentially. However, it might not be trained specifically on what brilliant partner marketing messaging is. And so by giving it great data around what is really good for your specific use case, you're going to improve the quality of the output. So that's the first thing, the quality of the input data. The second part is the domain expertise of whoever's building the tool. So again, easy to use ChatGPT as an example. OpenAI is full of people who are far smarter than I am. However, the question when it comes to partner marketing or brand activation or demand gen, any kind of B2B marketing, I would back myself to know an awful lot more than anybody at OpenAI does, and that gives me an advantage. You can see where the opportunities are for to build the tools, and you understand what that tool needs to do, like how the people using it are going to feel around it and understand how it might work in their organization. So Graham, I know that's something obviously you're doing a lot of at the moment. Do you ever get the pushback? Hey, well, why don't we just use ChatGPT for this, or why don't Claude or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I mean skills is part of it as we're evangelizing here, in that there's an expectation these tools can do everything. So I like to think of them in kind of levels of expertise. And OpenAI would hate me for saying this, but I think of something like ChatGPT as the most intelligent 7-year-old I've ever met. It's got knowledge of 100 Einsteins, but the reality is it will mimic the
Mm,
data that it's been trained on, which is basically the internet data, and it will mimic the input that you give it. So level one, you ask it a basic question, it will mirror that and give you a basic answer, like a sort of 6, 7-year-old, mirrors their parents. You then have to put quality in, and then it's that training data, as you said, where you start to enrich it and give it a specific purpose and start to mature it a bit more. That's when you're sort of looking at level three. And I was having this discussion last week with a tech firm, and there was a Gartner study that showed that 65% of companies have had challenges implementing these tools for that exact reason, where they said, let's just use the standard one, let's just use it off the shelf. And the data accuracy is the primary problem. So, 65% is shown to be low quality data, then gives low quality output, because
mm,
again, it's a 7-year-old. What do 7-year-olds do? Did you eat that last piece of cake? No, 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 I didn't, with cake all over their face. So it can sort of make things up. So that's why it's really, really important to sort of mirror that expertise that you talked about with the right data, with the right tool aligned to your strategy.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking about kind of knowledge and intelligence, and I think one of the things is worth saying, if we don't we don't really have the vocabulary to think super clearly about some of the ways in which generative AI works, and so we do rely on anthropomorphizing it, using words like knowledge and intelligence, and that can sometimes be a little bit misleading itself, can't it? Your 7-year-old, I love your 7-year-old analogy. I was speaking to a friend of mine who likened it to, I don't know if anybody's watched Father Ted, but Dougal, and it's like you have to kind of talk to it as if you were talking to Dougal, even though the response you get back might be incredibly fluent, articulate, and eloquent. Good. So there's one other thing I think as well that's very important. So if you're thinking about software, often it feels like, gosh, this is a significant investment, it's a significant commitment, and you think almost in terms of, right, well, this is, if I'm going to put this piece of software into my business, this is something I'm going to use for years, so I've got to get it right, first time. Else I'm going to be paying the cost for it over, for not getting it right over several years. However, I think there's something really interesting about how this technology, Gen AI, has allowed us to make tools in a much more composable manner. So you can spin up tools much more quickly than previously. And a lot of this is because so much can be achieved through natural language versus having to know a lot of specialized code to adapt and create some of these tools for specific use cases. So you see this even in the rate that tools are being released is kind of a circumstantial evidence for this. But yeah, thinking in terms of composability rather than this idea of kind of big monolithic tools that will last for years and years and years. Graham, I know you were talking to me the other day about just the progression of tools so quickly from what.
Yeah, I mean it's I've never witnessed anything like it before. I was saying, so maybe 6 months ago, you could go into ChatGPT, you could have it generate some code, then another tool, another model, Claude came along, that allowed you to have a bit of a co-pilot so you could see what you're building. Um, then GitHub did their kind of co-pilot thing, and then about a month ago, maybe 5, 6 weeks, a company called Bolt.new came out of the blue. You can just describe an application. It can build the full front end, back end for you in 10 minutes. And just in that last 6 months alone,
Mm.
that pace of change is astonishing. And so, yeah, that adaptability is going to be really, really key here. So if you're going to build a big monolithic system, and this is a challenge I've seen for some big organizations, is they want to sort of build a big fixed system, like let's build an AI system, whatever that is.
Mm.
But without that adaptability, it could be outpaced in 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
So you've got to have that modularity and be able to move quickly and adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, hopefully, listening to that, if hopefully it lowers some of the barriers that are going to stop you from trying this and really kind of pushing forward with it, because it is easy to spin up and spin down. So yeah, so hopefully that will give people a little bit of confidence. So the way that we've approached this in TMP is to create what we call temps. So TMPS. So what are temps, you might ask, is to think, all of this thing that I've shared so far has led us to this approach. So it's creating AI powered assistance that helps in our work. And here are just a few examples of those on the right. So you'll see the name is very specific actually, and it's based on all this thinking. So these are specific use cases and tools to help us with specific use cases. So a trends researcher to help us research trends, a proposition expert, a brand monitor, an imagery mixer, a video personalizer, a copy assistant, a subject matter expert. All of these things are designed use case first, rather than thinking, oh gosh, well, here's some technology, what should we do with it? And I think this is part of the shift that we're seeing from the technology to usable products and tools. Um, and a lot of people think, okay, well, it's a technology that's going to make us more efficient. It is, and that's really important. But just thinking about efficiency, enabling you to do the same things faster, is going to limit the opportunity that you find to capture value from it. So it doesn't just help us do the same things faster. That's a really important part of it. It doesn't just do that, though. It also helps us do the same things better. So I'm a strategist. I am very interested in what our audience is thinking, as well as what the business is capable of, the kind of classic three C's. So for example, I might do a lot of campaigning into CIOs. Now I can't call up the CIO of Unilever on a Friday night and have them answer my call just because I've got a few questions to ask them. However, what I can do now is put together a synthetic persona that might give me a perspective that reflects in some way what the CIO of Unilever or any other business might be interested in. And so it enables me then to refine the sorts of work that I'm putting together in terms of the ideas we can take out to the world. So definitely think about how it increases effectiveness, not just efficiency. And then thirdly, how it enables us to do new things. So, 6 months ago, I wouldn't be able to spin up an interactive avatar that is able to as look like a reasonably lifelike video, that is able to answer questions live and have a conversation with someone. But that is today something that I can do relatively quickly and easily. Also, the important part of this is understanding how they work with people. So like I said, never just think of the tool in isolation, think about how people are going to use it best. And so when we think about how people use this technology, a lot of research shows that you tend to fall into one of two camps. Either you are a centaur or a cyborg. Now, a centaur represents on the left by this idea of handing something over. So the idea here is that you will go through your workflow, you'll get to a certain part of it, and you go, now this is a task that I can give to GenAI. Use a GenAI tool for that. Brilliant. Take the results back and carry on about your workflow. So it's this idea that you hand over a task, you take the results back, and then you carry on with your workflow. That's the centaur thinking. Slightly different to this, and in my opinion, I've moved from centaur more towards the second thing, which is cyborg. So a cyborg way of working. Now, the idea here is actually that Gen AI becomes a co-intelligence as you move through the process. So I don't really think in terms now often of just specific tasks. There's also a layer around it where it is, I'm constantly using different bits of different tools and spinning up my own tools as I go through the whole workflow. So from initial thinking, it's almost like it's there by my side throughout the entire process. And the good thing about kind of designing these small, nimble, usable temps is that there are lots of things that you can call on at every stage of the workflow to help you think through a challenge. Now, it'd be foolish of us to talk through all these amazing things and the reasons we're so excited without just mentioning some of the risks as well and acknowledging those. And I think the point is, if you understand what the risks are, it enables you to move forward much more purposefully and quickly and avoid some of the obvious pitfalls that might hold you back. So Graham's already alluded to it, the idea of hallucinating, the inaccuracy that might come back. These Gen AI is not designed for factual accuracy. There are lots of tools and techniques now that mitigate some of the issues it has with accuracy and factual accuracy. But just thinking that it's going to be perfectly accurate every time, the technology is not there yet. The tools aren't there yet. And then there are obviously some other very important issues there as well, but we're not going to dive into those in detail now. If anybody wants to talk about them in more detail, please do just get in touch, and it is a very important part of it. We've come up with a simple framework to mitigate some of these risks. Things like using enterprise secure tools. There are tools that we choose not to use, which could be brilliant, but we don't feel they are enterprise secure. And that's a really important choice that we've made to help mitigate, protect our clients from risks. And we have these 4 principles on the right-hand side, as you'll see. So yes, we encourage people to experiment it, because getting everyone in the organization to understand it better is absolutely crucial to its success and its safety. Sharing experiences, finding ideas back, what's working, also just as importantly, what's not working. Only using public data on public tools, of course, and only using our own kind of approved tools for confidential data. So simple principles that enable us to move forward faster. Right, now I'm keenly aware that we need to move on to the second bit of this presentation. But Graham, anything just before I do, anything else to note on this first section around how to think about Gen AI?
Yeah, just I think on the policy piece, you've got some ideas here, but what I say to everyone is have a clear policy that's about using it responsibly and ethically to grow, and have that, and make sure everyone understands that, and then you can manage those risks. But don't be afraid to lean into that and embrace some of these tools, because if you're not, I can tell you your competition is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely good. Okay, so now let's talk about how we're using AI tools to help partner marketers. So if you think about the partner lifecycle at in a very simplified way, here are some of the ways, a few examples of how we're using AI and Gen AI tools to help your partner programs and your partners be more successful. So from initial choice of who are the partners you're looking to reach out to and who you're looking to focus your resources on of your existing partner network, through to onboarding those partners, enriching leads, finding a little bit more out about particular accounts, and then once you have this information, enabling them to reach out to those customers with more personalized and tailored content. So we're going to go through each of these now in turn. So I will start with the partner targeter. So this is a clear issue that loads of partner marketers have, like every partner marketer has. I have a finite amount of resources. How am I going to direct them most effectively so that I get the most value from my partners and offer the most value to them? And it's a classic kind of segmentation targeting challenge, marketing strategy challenge. So just a quick example of how we approach this. So a recent project that we've done was around defining the ideal partner profile to recruit new partners. So 2 parts. First of all, defining the IPP to recruit new partners. And secondly, identifying which of our existing partners have a high propensity to convert into revenue generating partners, but aren't currently doing so. So again, this is really about making the most of limited resources you have. And it's a relatively simple process where we collect the relevant data around existing partners and what partners are out there in the market, enrich that with firmographic data, technographic data, any other signals that might potentially be useful, and then training an AI model. So this is a mix actually of Gen AI, but also a lot of just simple machine learning AI as well, in terms of understanding what are the signals, what is the data that's going to make a difference to either finding these ideal partners out in the market, or finding the existing partners who you might want to reactivate. And then that model gives us outcome prediction, which we then obviously test, and it leads to this ability very quickly to identify the ideal partner profile and prioritize it as well. There's a brief, I can't actually talk about that specific case in detail names, but there was another one that we've done recently, which was very similar principles. Again, using similar process in this time for customers, and the results kind of speak for themselves. 1.4x improvement in the number of leads that were generated, 2.5x increase in the likelihood of progression towards an SQL, and then actually 27% of those identified leads ended up making it to closed win within 6 months. And we saw very similar results from the partner segmentation and targeting work that we've done. So the partner targeter is a great way to start. How are you going to make the most of your resources, recruiting the right kind of partners and making the most of the existing partners you have. Up next, the partner onboarder. So I am just going to have to swap briefly to a different display for this one. So one of the common challenges that partners have is how do you deal with the avalanche of information that you might get, working yourself with lots of different vendors, each of which have lots of different propositions that might be tricky and complex to understand. So let me just share. I'll just slightly clumsily share my screen because it's taking a moment to load that. Here we go. So imagine that I am Workday. This is all trained on entirely public information, then, by the way, perfectly easy to share. So I'm a partner who's about to start working with Workday. Now, Workday have lots of propositions. I want to understand, maybe I'm a partner that works into the financial services sector. I want to understand how Workday, what I should be taking to my clients to talk about in terms of what Workday can offer. So I could start, for example, with a very simple, give me an overview of Workday. Now, previously, I might have had some training on this, some training materials, but I also probably would have had loads of decks, websites that would have taken me days to trawl through. Now I can start to interact and engage with this information in a much more natural way at my own pace, asking the kind of questions that I want to ask as a partner, just being onboarded into part of this partner program. So obviously it's giving me a great overview here, key features and benefits, Workday modules, etc. I might say, okay, well, look, I'm interested to learn more about HCM. Tell me the 5 most interesting, unique facts about it. And this isn't something that I'd be able to do if I had a slide deck. I'd have had to go digging around for all this information. So here it is. It's now generating this. Now, this is a very simple version of what I've designed as custom GPT. We're building actual tools for our clients that are specific on the data sets that they have. But hopefully as a demo, it just shows you the difference in terms of how quickly I can learn about this stuff using a tool like this versus the traditional method of passive information, static information in slide decks and partner portals. This becomes much more dynamic, and it's been shown time and time again that if you create the right kind of learning experience, people are going to learn faster and remember that information a lot more effectively. So there we go. So choosing the right partners with our partner targeter and identifying which ones to focus on, and then once you've chosen them, how you can get them on board with your proposition in a much more fluid way. Now, Graham, I think you were going to share a little bit around a tool for lead enrichment and account usage.
So my objective for lead enrichment was, how can I turn a task that's a day and a half into the time it takes to make and have a coffee? So I looked at tasks which took approximately 10 hours, tried to trim them down to a 10-minute period, with the objective that I want to give salespeople high quality leads enriched with the sort of data that you just saw. So I'm just going to share a little workflow, and I put this together. I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder. I run the sales team, I do strategy, I do a bit of consulting. So I was able to use Gen AI to put some of this stuff together. So
I think it's a really, really lovely example because it's a classic resource constrained issue for partners, for might be smaller organizations. So yeah.
Exactly. So particularly with a public sector focus, this one, I was given the objective by the business this year, we need to grow, we need to really grow into our public sector segment. For those of you who work in public sector, you'll know that tenders are a key part of that. It's quite an overhead. There's a lot of work involved in that. So I wanted to look at that workflow and work out where are our real key opportunities so we can be laser focused. So I put together this 2-part workflow. Hopefully it's showing, Ali, on the screen.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Great, that's good. Otherwise, which effectively goes to a website like Contract Finder, Finder Tender. These are all public websites. What it effectively does then is take all that data, look at it, and qualify it against what's right for your business. So in my case, I was looking for high quality networking, security, things related to the business that my salespeople work on. And then effectively using a lead spreadsheet to score those opportunities based on criteria and explain the criteria as well, and use Gen AI to do that first part. So you can see here I've got a leads thing. This is just Google Sheets. It could be in a CRM. It doesn't matter. It's empty at the moment. If I run this workflow now, you can see there's some activity going on. It's now gone to talk to the internet. It's pulling that. The chat models talk to it, and as if by magic, it's now populated those opportunities into my very basic CRM here and scored them and given a rationale behind that score as well. And then the human in the loop part, i.e., that is salesperson go and interact with these, is look at these and decide whether they're going to continue with these leads or not. So very simple, yes, no, maybe. So they'll take a look at that. 5 is we really want to go after that's really relevant to our business. 1 is it's got absolutely nothing to do with what we do. And then you can see there's some others that fall in the middle. So that's only half the story, right? It's then what happens next. Because you want to outreach, maybe you want to go and have a meeting, maybe you've got a face-to-face. So how do you get all the right information to prepare for that? So that, yes, would trigger a secondary workflow, which I call the kind of research agent, which is that, think about it traditionally. You probably go on Google, you might look at their last accounts, you may go on LinkedIn, you may look at their news. That's a really timely and long process. I've done it many, many times over my career. I've done this with a chat interface as well, so you can bypass the first thing. So for the sake of the demo, I'm going to do it on your company, Ali, and see what we get out. So hopefully I don't make a spelling mistake, but Gen AI is quite good at picking up spelling mistakes as
It
well.
is, yeah, that's something I've noticed. It's much more forgiving, isn't it? Yeah.
So what it's done there is it's used a tool called Perplexity. I'm a big fan of Perplexity. I know you are as well, Ali. I've given it some structure. It's done some research on that. It's then formatted and it's put it in a Google Sheets for me, ready to go. And it's given me the link. So if I open this link, fingers crossed, it's now given me a complete overview on the marketing practice. So these are the things I asked for, but you can tailor these things for whatever's relevant for your outreach conversations. So company background, core products, key people. And what's really important here is if you just talk to ChatGPT, that's fine. What you've got here is references coming in as well, right? So this is where you're back into the cyborg example you talked about, Ali, right? You've got to enrich real data with the training data with tools. So key financial data. I've asked about IT strategy, that's relevant for me. And then because this session was about AI, I did tweak it for this demo. I asked it to specifically, I'm a small business. I want to approach the marketing practice. I want to talk to them about AI automation and workflows. It's then given me some background specifically there about it. It's then made a suggestion on proposals. What's quite funny is it's then given me some key people to contact. Thankfully, it's come out the same. There is some subtle differences each time, but actually, Ali, it's come out with you because it's read the marketing practice. It can see that you've talked about AI Week this week. It's also talked about your CTO, and then the last thing is a sort of a suggested structured outreach based on particular business that you're working with. So that was all done in the time I clicked and talked, basically. And this is something I put together myself. I didn't have a big development team. It didn't cost me like millions of dollars of R&D. This is the world that we're in now. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Graham. Yeah, I love that. I love that tool. And just want to pick up on one of the things you said there that I think is probably easy to overlook. That not all tools are created equal. So there is a particular thing around accuracy, which Perplexity tends to be better at than some other tools, for example. Though obviously that's always changing. People are different models and different tools are always catching up. And what I love is that, like you've shown there, you design the tools not because you want that whole thing to be automated. It would be perfectly possible to design a tool then to send an email to a given email address without any human in the loop whatsoever. But it's so important to design the tools to allow humans to be in the loop and to
Yeah.
make decisions and to see what's right and see what's wrong. Because even the best tools in the world still have things you need to check and you need to understand. So yeah, I think that's one of the things I love about the way you've designed that. Good. Okay. So I will just share the final. I realize we're a little bit over time. Graham, is that showing my screen?
Yeah, you are. You're back
Yeah,
sharing.
lovely. Good. So content personalization. Now, it's worth saying when it comes to content personalization, there are lots of things out there that are doing, and we're using a lot of tools as well to do lots of different types of content personalization, whether it's outreach or adjusting conversation starters for salespeople, whatever it might be. But one of the example I wanted to share today was really around video personalization. So we're working with a large creative software maker on creating tools to personalize all sorts of different content at scale as well. But this one I think is particularly interesting. So this is an imperfect technology. I would always advise clients to be really explicit if you're going to use technology like this, that it is not the real thing. Don't pretend that it is. But you can still get some of the benefits of personalization from using tools like this. And also don't forget, this is the worst that this technology is ever going to be. Even just in the last couple of months, actually, since I made this demo probably about 8 or 9 months ago now, but actually it's improved radically since then. So I will share just a brief snippet of this. And it may or may not play some sound. I've just realized. But Graham, let me know if it doesn't. But essentially, this is a
Here to explain AI to make high quality videos in seconds and at scale without any technical know-how. Using an AI platform like this, you can create studio quality videos for any purpose. Ich kann zwischen verschiedenen Sprachen wechseln. Esto meu favorito. J'aime aussi celui-ci. Your avatar can say whatever you want in any language to any audience. Your avatar can even be whoever you want.
Oops, I forgot to change my voice there.
Anyway, all you need is a script and a little imagination. If you're interested in trying it out, just talk to my friends at the marketing practice. Lovely people, especially Ali. They can help you work out how you might use technology like this, not just for an interesting demo, but to actually grow your business. Grazie e buona giornata. Taka terfirir o eigu golandad, arigato, subarashi tsuitachi o. Mahalo ya oe ahau oli kala, kwala I ugodandan. Thank you and have a great day. Hi, my name.
Okay, so as you can see, it's very simple to spin up videos. Now, again, the personalization at scale has been a goal of marketers for a long time now. But this technology is genuinely allowing us to do that in a way that wasn't previously feasible. And again, the secret here, a lot of partners are super resource constrained, and just giving them materials that they can swap out a logo on is not going to be the baseline much longer, even if it still is. So this is the kind of level of ambition that I would encourage all partner marketers to have when they think about partner enablement. Good. Okay. So hopefully you've seen crucially a little bit about how to think about Gen AI, how to understand and make sense of all the noise that you hear about it online. And the value that true expertise can bring, and hopefully you've also enjoyed some of the demos we've shared. Graham, any last thoughts for people listening?
Just be curious, go and educate yourself. If you're in leadership, be proactive, set a vision for your teams, embrace it, and be transparent. And it's here, it's really exciting. So go and embrace.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thanks for everyone for joining.